another edition of the Best Business Minds, where we interview business leaders and academics who write thought-provoking books. I'm Marc Kramer, a serial entrepreneur who consults with family businesses and entrepreneurs, and currently I'm teaching entrepreneurship at Vinh University in Hanoi, Vietnam. Today, please welcome Toby Usnik and Samar Kanga. Did I say that right?
Kanuga, Samir
Samir?
Kanuga.
Author of the book Connecting the Dots, Building Your Network and Legacy. Guys, welcome. So great to have you here.
Thanks, Mark. Great to be
Thank
here.
you.
So let's start off with Toby and then Samir, each of you giving your professional backgrounds, how you got to where you're at right now.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mark. And great to be with you, Samir. I am in internationalist by spirit, so I'm envious of you being in Vietnam today, Mark, while I'm here in New York. But I grew up basically moving all around the Midwest with my stepfather's career with BASF. So every 2 years or so, my brothers and I moved. But we had a pretty middle class Midwestern upbringing, and I was early on caught by the bug to get out. So I did backpacking in high school around Europe, did graduate work and undergraduate work in international topics, studied abroad, worked abroad, and then when I was finishing working toward a PhD in international and comparative education at Columbia, I realized I could be in school forever. I was nearing 30, so I did a pivot and with a recruiter went into public affairs or public relations at American Express, where I spent 5 years working as director of international public affairs, and then followed that route. So I had 5 years, 2 years at a startup called Razorfish in the early internet days,
I
and
remember
then
Razorfish.
yeah. And then 5 years at the New York Times during 9/11 and a lot of challenging times. And then 10 years at Christie's International Auction House, running communications there globally and building their corporate social responsibility program, which is all to say that I'm a career communications professional with a lot of social impact along the way. And now, more recently, I'm just doing a lot of AI instruction. I'm very bullish on AI and have been sort of informally teaching for the past 3 years and hope to take it on the road.
And what are you focused on in AI before Samir talks about his background?
Well, I think it's really important to level set with people what they think or call AI and how they use it. And once when my students understand what their knowledge or familiarity is with, I then level set and I focus almost exclusively on the large language models. And I really just try to address the basics. We cover this, the privacy, the governance, sustainability, all that. But I leave them documents and leave behinds to go deeper in that. And I just focus on the issues that are top of mind for them in their business or their life crisis or the book they want to get done. And so in an hour, we're able to cover quite a bit of ground and even bring some joy along the way, which is, I think, where we should all try to aim.
Absolutely. And by the way, I would love for you to come to Vietnam and be a part of my hackathon, which I have 740 students focused on how to create jobs through AI
Let's do it.
and not how they reduce them. So we should talk
Let's
about
do
that
it.
sometime.
Yeah, I
Okay,
love it.
Samir.
Good morning, everyone. Mark, thank you so much. And Toby, great to be with you again as we do this. My name is Samir Kanuga, based here in Phoenix, Arizona. I work as the CFO in the hospitality industry, but I always joke around with Mark and Toby that I have three full-time jobs. I work as a CFO for this company. My second job is my wife and I have three kids. We have twin girls that are 8.5 and a boy that's 7. So we're really busy running around with those three. And my passion is flying, and that's how Toby and I met. So the third thing I do is I'm a flight instructor. It's a hobby. It's been a hobby since I was 18 years old. I love flying, teaching flying, and everything aviation. And I see Toby's got his Cessna sweater on. Proud of the brand. Yep, Cessna, based in Wichita, Kansas. And I love aviation. Really passionate about it.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you guys before we started, I'd flown, taken instruction about three, maybe five times. I've gotten instruction in single engine planes, and it was an amazing experience. Incredible. I can see how people can get hooked on that very easily.
Gosh, it's so addicting to being up there and you're away from everything. No cell phones, no messaging. It's just you and the airplane and it's very peaceful. It's just a whole different world. It's my getaway zone for sure. Love it.
And
So
you're
let's start. So let's start off, guys, with what inspired you both to write "Connecting the Dots" and how did your collaboration begin? Toby, maybe you can kick off on that.
Sure. I'll give the credit to Samir in the sense that he asked a question about networking, and that led to this. But the sort of apt origin story is that we were literally, so my husband and I had bought a Cessna 15 years ago or so, and we were matched by the broker with a quote unquote safety instructor, safety pilot, who's going to fly the plane with us. We would fly, but he'd be in the co-pilot seat from California back to our home in the Hudson Valley in New York. And enter Samir. So we met Samir at that moment in time, and he was, I think, a graduate student, MBA, single, wonderful guy. And then he's just been in our life ever since through the marriage, the three children, the parents. And so 15 years later, so when we're selling the plane, we had to have Samir come to New York and fly back to Arizona with the same broker that who had brought us all together. And we were flying over Wichita, Kansas, and Samir said, "Toby, I just want to understand how you network because I've seen you all these years, and I just am really intrigued by it." And I said, and Samir, being the dutiful student that he is, said, he pulled up his iPad to start taking notes, and I said, "You know what, Samir?" Because I was flying, but was on autopilot. We're over Wichita, home of Cessna. I said, why don't we put that down and why don't we just commit to writing a book about networking? And let's also bake AI into the whole process. So, Samir, you can take it from there and correct me if I got anything wrong.
No, that's exactly right. It was naively just a, question to, it was what a 30-hour flight from New York to Arizona. It's a long couple days flight. So we had a lot of time to catch up and talk about a lot of things. And I just naively asked this question, not knowing that it would be the spur point for a book that we're really proud of. I'm so proud that we were able to go through this together, and it was a lot of fun working with my great friend and mentor, Toby.
Likewise. It was good to
So,
hear you.
Samir, how did your personal experiences in entrepreneurship shape your approach to building networks? And then, Toby, I'd like to hear about yours in corporate social responsibility. So, Samir, let's start with you in entrepreneurship and how your approach to building a network.
it- it's so important in the business world for sure. And I'm talking strictly, in the business world as you're looking for maybe a new opportunity or careers or anything like that. On the personal side, it's so important also. I love meeting new people and getting new experiences. And, we were really blessed over 15 years ago to meet Toby and Harlan, and they've been a part of our lives. Our families have really come together and integrated in many ways. So for me, networking means a whole. It has a very personal touch to it. And I'm lucky to have been able to meet a lot of people in the aviation industry, and that's opened a lot of doors and just made a lot of friends all over the world.
And has it created a new business opportunity for you? Like, is a lot of your success in business due to the fact that you've networked well?
It certainly hasn't hurt anything. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's so important in this day and age to create a real human connection with people, and you just never know what that door will open. And even if it doesn't open any doors, I'm just happy having a lot of friends in my Rolodex.
And that's an old term that ages all of us, right? When we use that term Rolodex. And Toby,
Exactly.
how about for you in corporate social responsibility?
Yeah. Well, I would say, Mark, I've got some, I'm 62, almost 63. And through those years, I've sort of distilled some major themes in life and in career. And the words that always come out of my mind and mouth and come to mind now are things like service, purpose, leadership, and joy. And by service, I mean that I was raised in a family that we weren't exceptional in any sense, but there was an expectation of all my four brothers and I that we would put ourselves through college, that we would be responsible American citizens. And so we've all largely been and done that and continue to do that. But also, I've learned with great brands that I've been able to work with and the leaders there, American Express, the New York Times, Christie's, that great brands, like great people, great leaders, have a sort of moral compass that points north. And they have a commitment to a higher purpose than just making money. And that's what I had reinculcated with every company I went to, from the New York Times to Christie's, American Express. So with that, I then started, as I rose into leadership roles, try to be creative and leverage that more as the world was changing. So, for example, at Christie's, I created what we called later a corporate social responsibility program, but it was a way to at first engage our clients, particularly high net worth clients in various board organizations, to support us in a 3-year commitment to an environmental or a sustainability auction called the Green Auction, or a bid to save the earth, sort of a pun on auctions. And that was a huge success, raised millions of dollars in awareness and celebrities and 4 great environmental organizations. So that kind of got me recognized internally. I wasn't looking for it, but a newish incoming CEO asked me to build out a corporate social responsibility program. So I built what was called Art and Soul, very simple, but we were just bringing a little bit more soul to the sale of art. And that just continued to grow. And then along the way, you find joy. So if you're doing it well, you will find that if you meet people where they are on their passions and what drives them in life, and you reconcile that with your office or your school or your mission as an organization, the more you can close that gap between their passions and joys and the organizations, the better off you are. So now I feel like I'm firing all pistons because I've learned a lot. So my networking is a complete extension of that. I network with people that are germane to whatever I'm passionate about or what I'm doing. And so to me, my whole life and every minute of my day is like kneading dough. Everything goes back into a very much a purpose-driven life for me. And I think the best business minds, I suspect you would agree that the leaders you've met they have to be purpose-driven. They aren't just about money. They got something that's far more powerful, sticky, that scales in a way.
I interviewed just for this show alone. I have another podcast called Asian Founders and Funders, and in both podcasts, nobody was ever focused on the money. It was always mission driven, and if they were lucky enough, the money would come along with it. But it was
Mhm.
always about being mission driven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
pure is that? I mean, you have kids, Samir has kids. I don't, but I can tell you, I coach a lot of young people as well as disrupted older folks. And no one is too young to contemplate the question of what is your purpose or what's your mission, what's your calling. And the sooner in life one can, and I know this at my core, the sooner that one can at least contemplate what do I want to be remembered for? What am I special at? The sooner they can contemplate, the more effective and efficient they're going to be in getting on their career path faster and networking with the people that are germane to that. And that's even before you add in LinkedIn and AI and all these other things. But that sense of purpose is everything. So I now know, I mean, my purpose is making a difference through daily discovery and adventure. So this podcast is reinforcing that
Right.
adventure and hopefully helping others.
I found for me teaching, I mean, I've been part-time for like 20 years, but now I've been full-time doing it for 5 years. And I found that I really enjoyed it, that every day goes by so fast. But I was lucky. I mean, I've always been an entrepreneur doing things that I wanted to do. And when you read that 77% of people are unhappy about what they're doing because they don't feel like that mission in whatever they're doing, no matter how much money they're getting, is very fulfilling for them,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and you always hear that when people leave corporate America and they're doing something else, they go, "Oh, I finally feel fulfilled in
Yeah.
what I'm doing."
I
Um,
find that I agree with you completely. I also find that, we talk a lot now about outsourcing parenting, that parents aren't around, so the teachers and others are supposed to do it. I think a lot of managers in business have, in a sense, outsourced or stayed away from actually fostering and instilling leadership in their employees. And so justifiably, a lot of employees are disgruntled, as are the managers, because everyone deserves a good manager. I've managed great teams, and all those people are still in my life because you're not managing. Well, you can manage for the moment of the current exercise, but if you really manage a person for their full development, and again, what like drives them, motivates them, and brings them joy, they're with you for life, and that just comes back in spades in a really great way.
Yeah, my class today, I'm teaching agile innovation, and we were talking about what it takes to lead innovative teams. And one of the most important things is having high emotional IQ.
Mhm.
Yeah, there you
Absolutely.
go.
My next question to you both is, and maybe Samir, you can start with this, is was there a particular moment or relationship that changed how you viewed the power of connection?
Nothing in particular. And I'll go back to Toby's saying about a personal philosophy, and see if I can show mine right there, if that comes up on the screen. This is a
Live
background that
playfully.
I keep on my screen. It says, live playfully, seek adventures, and be inspiring. And it's my personal philosophy, something that I relate to every single day. I look at it every single day. And so the be inspiring part is a tribute to the mentors that I've had in my career. Toby is one of the big ones, and all the people that have helped me out in my career. And I have a fun story about how I was able to help out a young man. This is 16 years ago. Young man, he was in high school at the time. Through networking, I got a new student. So he was working on his private pilot license, and his dream was to be in the fighter pilot for the US Navy. And so 16 years ago, I trained him up. He got his private pilot license. He went to the Naval Academy and now flies the F-18 out of Seattle, Washington. And so
How
it was
cool.
fun because we came full circle. I feel like it came full circle because just earlier this year, there was an air show in Tucson, Arizona, and he invited myself and my whole family down to be a guest of his as he was performing in this air show. And so for me, it's just so much fun to see. I love that part. The last part of my philosophy is be inspiring. I love to inspire that next generation of leaders as a tribute to all the people that have helped me out.
That's
And
great.
Toby?
I don't have a particular aha moment, Mark, but I have a series of things or legacies or practices along the way in life. And there's a common denominator, which is both analog and digital, which I think is an important message for anyone today because of the role of digital and everything. Um, so the way I was raised, we were just raised to be, good citizens, volunteer, Boy Scouts, all that. And then when I got to American Express, and that was reinforced by the brand values to be the world's leading service brand, um, that was where I was offered, as were my peers, a course in Dale Carnegie's great book and program, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I still
Yep, love
recommend
that
that
book.
book. It really does it does crystallize the basic things like uh, saying please and thank you, and giving people praise and maybe pulling them aside if you want to critique them. And I definitely live in a way that I give everyone the high of the people I know and am friends with, colleagues with, I give them the highest reputation to live up to. And until they disappoint me, I will always stand by them and defend them and feel strongly about them. And that's Dale Carnegie. And then I would say the legacy stuff are things that I've built. I think one of my proudest moments, there were a couple. One was at American Express, and this is going to sound antiquated, but in the mid 90s, I was on a committee that lobbied successfully for what was then called domestic partner benefits, because there wasn't gay marriage. There wasn't even a thought of gay marriage, but there was the potential for LGBTQ employees to have for their domestic partners the same kind of insurance benefits and others that other employees had. So that was a great win for us. We did that. And then I kept active in LGBTQ stuff throughout my volunteerism for decades. So that's a nice sort of legacy piece that was both in present and lives on. And then the other is an organization I co-founded 19 years ago called ArtsCom, and it's all the chief marketing and communications officers in the New York cultural institutions. So we started out small with Christie's and then the Met and the Guggenheim and Carnegie Hall. And we've grown. Now we're 86 members, and we are the crisis solving colleagues, your networking buddies. And we've dealt with everything from blogging to COVID to Trump administration cuts, you name it. But the reason I mention it also is because it's digital and analog. But I really believe, Mark, in this day and age, because of AI and because of technology, we can build our own sounding boards and we can create our own associations and groups that are much more bespoke to the needs of our community. So, as the heads of marketing and communications and cultural institutions, maybe the Public Relations Society of America is not the place to go, or maybe the Business Council is not the place to go. So I believe young and old now have an incredible ability, and we talk about this in the book, to build your own network that's going to reinforce your mission, your purpose in life. So it's not crass and it's not a bad word in my mind, because if you have a sense of purpose that's of a higher service, and you're connecting with like-minded people who are going to help you fulfill that and in turn help them fulfill their mission, then you've got the most bespoke sounding board, and your impact, your ripple effect is going to be even greater. So ArtsCom was a sort of earlier harbinger of that, but now I feel like with my AI coaching and teaching, my podcast, that's exactly what I'm doing in spades.
What's your podcast focused on?
It's based on a book I wrote, The Caring Economy, which was about building the corporate social responsibility program at Christie's. But then how could any brand become more responsible, more civic minded, more engaged? And so during COVID, I launched the podcast, and now on a weekly basis, I have a 30-minute sit down with a leader. And these are people who I see as leaders, but most of the world do. And we look at first, we demystify how they got where they got, because nobody got where they got by themselves. Not real leaders. They would tell you that they had help. And then how do they steward their brands through the times? So we've been doing this since George Floyd and COVID and you name it. And I love that I will have oral histories that now it's 19 seasons. I've got so many great oral histories with great leaders, from heads of communications at JP Morgan, or a young lady who's blinded by her uncle and now runs a prominent nonprofit globally for blind, or Bobby Cordano, who is the president of Gallaudet University. I had to go onto YouTube with my program because you have to have two American Sign Language interpreters to do those kinds of things. So, I mean, it's just as diverse as it gets, but in the best sense, because they're all leaders and they all have great stories to tell.
So let's talk about how you redefine networking as connecting the dots. How is that different from traditional networking?
Sure. Samir, you want to go first?
Yeah, so connecting the dots, the title of the book came
Right.
from, of course, our flight plan as we mapped out our flight plan across America.
Mhm.
And
It's
I really
superimposed.
attribute,
Sorry, it's superimposed in the cover of the book. If you look, you'll see our flight map across the US.
exactly. And I really look to it as Toby's method of really being able to place people and their interest all together. So Toby is really the world class in, for example, I went to the Ohio State University, and he'll, come across an article or something that reminds him of Ohio State and send it over. He's so good at keeping in touch and remembering those little tidbits of information about my life, for example. And also, he's so good at being able to say, well, okay, Samir, you're interested in this, passion. I have a friend who does that, and being able to put those two people together and make meaningful connections. I can't even think of how many people Toby has introduced myself to, that we've made really great connections also. And just so that's what I think connecting the dots is, not just a traditional networking.
Yeah. It's a journey too, right? Like the
Yeah.
blind. For me, it's both the journey piece. It's also strategic in the sense that you have a purpose in life and you're moving forward, not backward with it. And another sort of rule of practice I have is just threes. I try to keep things to three and no more if I'm organizing something or I have to get messages out. And so most people, I think, approach networking as transactional, and I do this, you do that, or you should know this person because you're this way. But we're all more multidimensional than that. So I always try to think of at least three common connections when I'm putting people together. And if I do that, then it's more likely that they're really going to click. and you can get farther faster with people. Like I was born in Ohio, so I'm a Buckeye as well. So it's another reason why I could remember Ohio State, which by the way, last week, Samir, was National Ohio Day. Just didn't know that. But once you remember that, it's a lot easier to kind of connect people in a fun way that is just more flattering, if nothing else. But I also find it just is more potentially beneficial to all because they're going to connect with a like-minded person for sure. They're going to be remembering each other more because it wasn't just the one thing that brought them together. And life is a constant movement. So what we're talking about here today might be completely different tomorrow. So if you've got other ways to connect or recall people, the better off you are. I will say at the same time, because I moved so much as a kid, I always kept up with people. And when I lived, worked, traveled, studied abroad, I was the one that wrote postcards, Christmas cards, aerograms, when you can Google if you don't know what an aerogram is. But I've never been on Facebook. I won't be on Facebook. To me, it's a false sense of connectivity. I also have issues with Mark Zuckerberg and his leadership practices, but LinkedIn I will use because it is a professional network, is owned by Microsoft. I believe that it's important and responsible, quote unquote, social network. So I'm very respectful of the people I connect with and hope that they do the same with me because I talk about, as my friend Sue Rockefeller taught me, the expression of your reputational currency. Like when you're a pilot in command of a plane, you're responsible for all souls on board. That's what we call them, souls. How many people? You have the same responsibility in my mind, and I think Samir would agree in our book that you have a responsibility, you have a reputation to uphold, and you can build up a great reputation and you could lose it overnight if you don't really conduct yourself responsibly with other people. So connecting the dots is a better way to build in resilience and actually have more joy, have more impact in life, and cut through a lot, excuse my French, but cut through a lot of bullshit in life. If you have a sense of purpose and where you're going and you're with like-minded people moving in that direction, everyone wins.
Okay, so guys, maybe Toby, you can continue on here. What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about networking today?
Is that Samir? You do have to jump off. Is that right? Oop, I think he did jump off.
Okay.
I would say, some people say it's a dirty word, and I get why people say that, but it really depends on who's using the word and how they use it. I think the more important message that I try to convey, which is in the title of the book, is the legacy piece. So if you're networking, to what end? And legacy, purpose are kind of entwined, opposite sides of the same coin, perhaps. If you have a sense of purpose, it's of a higher calling that's ennobling or elevating of more than just yourself, then everything you do is going to lead to a positive impact, and that's what you will be remembered for. That will be your legacy. There's a famous line that people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. I think that's good to remember, not in a saccharine way, but really in a way that is respectful of all and purpose driven. So networking can be perceived as tacky because sometimes it's particularly with digital tools, it can be just abused, whether it's, phishing scams or counter, you name it, Ponzi schemes. But really, it's not. It's just a way of connecting. And I think the other point we make very clearly in the book is both analog and digital. We talk about the digital tools out there and we talk in generational differences because we use the different, millennials, Gen Zs, all that. We look at each of them in each chapter and what they might think or do. But then they also focus on the analog. You have to get out. You need to learn to write handwritten notes to people. You might not do it all the time, but Mark, I think you would agree, like if you see a handwritten note in the mailbox in this day and age, you're probably afraid, like, what's that? But it's the first thing you'll open up, right? Do your daughters write
Yeah,
notes or
yeah, yeah, I would say for sure. It gets people's attention over the fact that all the text messages and emails that we all get and are deluged with.
yeah. And the other thing is, I think it's a lot, life is constantly changing. And so I keep relationships warm. I don't feel guilty if I don't see someone for a long time because I know I'll pick up where I left off and they will do the same. That's been proven over and over again for me. But I don't believe in holding on or guilting someone that I didn't see because they wouldn't, whatever. When our paths cross, then you pick up where you left off or you grow. But I will tell you, I don't like to hang out and go to high school or college reunions and live in the past. I will see friends from different parts of my life and I will be glad to see them. But I'm always going to take an interest in, so what are you up to now? Where are you going? What's new? The way I refer to it, Mark, is let's advance the narrative, whether it's with my cousin or a sibling or an old colleague. I'm happy to see them, but I'm only really interested in moving forward because that's where life is. And I don't want to live in a ghetto and I don't want to live in the past. I want to keep moving and growing and adventuring. And so that concept of advancing the narrative, I think, is a really important one when you're talking about networking.
So this fits along because I'm interested to find out about why you're not, and lots of people aren't excited about Facebook. In an age dominated by LinkedIn and social media, how can people ensure that their networks are genuine and not transactional? And maybe you can talk about why you're an advocate of LinkedIn but not of Facebook.
Yeah. Again, my bias, but I'll tell you, I nominally am on Instagram and nominally on WhatsApp, which Meta owns because for international stuff you need WhatsApp. And um, for Instagram, I'm more active on TikTok because that's where my audience is for my Funkle Toby, the fun uncle you want for life and career advice. So I try to meet people where they are and and engage the way they want to. So for me, with Mark Zuckerberg, I really do think that he is egomaniacal, that his company and he in particular have fostered genocides in Myanmar and had an inordinately significant role in problematic elections in our country and elsewhere. And his ego, he just doubles down on. I find nothing redeeming about him or his ego. I live in New York, where you can regularly go to Rockefeller Center, where the Rockefellers were, or Carnegie Hall, where the Carnegies left their legacy. I don't see Mark Zuckerberg putting his name on a building or really opening himself up to critique or responsibility. So that's just my personal bias, but I try not to go there with him in terms of Facebook. Globally, I understand, particularly in Asia where you are, Mark, a lot of small businesses have built their backbone on
Totally.
Facebook,
Yeah.
but it's problematic for me because I don't want a private sector person controlling that much. Ironically, I ran communications at the British consulate for 3 years, and we did a lot of things on WhatsApp. So you tell me that we have to be secure in our communications, but he's got way too much information on all these things. So, but ironically, I do like Microsoft. I do like LinkedIn because it is a professional network. It is owned by Microsoft. I believe that its values and practices are more consistent with mine. But I will tell you, I also have, it's a crass expression, but I think it's important for this conversation and for networking. I call only on LinkedIn. I call it whoring and stalking. Whoring and stalking, as offensive as it is a memorable term, which is why I use it. But the concept of whoring, when I use it in the context of LinkedIn, is if you want to be, you talked about your daughter being in LA and in the film and television industry. If that's her industry, that's her calling, that's her purpose, then I would suggest that she keep building her LinkedIn contacts until she's capped at 30,000 like I am. And that those LinkedIn contacts need to be anyone and everyone involved in the film and television industry in LA, and that she go for as long as she can until they say you have to stop for a bit and then you go back, you start again. That's the whoring because you're putting yourself in the universe that you say you are part of. And then the stalking part is with LinkedIn, most people once you see someone, you try and connect with them. You scroll down, you'll see who else is connected with them. And I say connect with all those people because if you don't have 30,000 contacts, then there's 30,000 opportunities or serendipitous moments that you're missing. So that combined with the regular use of LinkedIn is keeping those efforts warm and authentic. So I don't think that that's opportunistic in the sense that I regularly take out 100 contacts because I'm capped at 30,000 so that I can then get even closer to the people that I really am involved with around corporate social responsibility, philanthropy, AI. So I don't think I'm being disingenuous because I'm actually not only refining that constantly, and they have the option to either connect with me or not, and most often the times they do, but also by constantly refining, and posting regularly about things that are germane to my work, whether I posted something on the Chambers of Commerce now, American Chambers of Commerce globally is a great conduit for using AI to address things like the government shutdown or the anti-Americanism that's going on around the world. So if you really see me on LinkedIn, you're going to see who I am and how I present myself. I play it pretty much down the middle, I think, politically, but because I'm trying to bridge and bring people together. So I do the whoring and stalking again, just as somewhat a light joking way to help people realize that it's a powerful tool, and it's worth spending time there. And then really cultivating those relationships and that platform with what I believe to be important messages about current events.
So, how do introverts or people uncomfortable with self promotion build meaningful networks?
There's so many different ways, and we talk about many of them in the book. One thing that I did, and it's a global Anglophone-based opportunity, but um, Toastmasters is a great international organization for public speaking. So if you are introverted in person, it's good to practice public speaking. It costs maybe $100 a year, depending on your chapter. You go at your own rate. It's intimate, and you get great critiquing from your peers, and you only get better and better at public speaking and also dealing with whatever the obstacles or things are that you want to work through. So if you can start to practice things, in this case with Toastmasters, and work at your public speaking in an analog situation, that will pour it over into your digital ways. I would also say that with AI now, there are apps like Udemy. There are ways to do synthetic audiences and practice. And then you can also just try things on. Like with AI, you could, as an example, you could take your whole profile on LinkedIn and say, all right, I want this to be more spunky. I want this to be more serious. I want it to be more, Megan Thee Stallion than, Bill Gates. So in the privacy of your own home and online, you can actually workshop things that might help you be your true self, but also connect with those who are a little bit different. I love that about AI in particular. If you're going into a meeting with someone, or you're going to a cocktail party for an industry event, you don't know what to say or do, that's the perfect kind of thing. I would run through AI and say, I'm going to this, YPO, Young Presidents Organization event. It's my first time, and it's in California, and I don't want to get caught up in political discussions, whatever. Give me like 5 talking points. It'll give you the talking points. And you can say, that's something I would never say, or, oh, that's pretty good, but you have tools at your disposal. And I find that most people have a certain aspect of their lives that they're introverted. So it's a matter of finding the other introverts in the room. And that could be a fun way to even think about it when you're going out to network. Like either looking at their backgrounds on LinkedIn and seeing what their stories are, what they're opining on. The human connection is so real. That's another reason why I don't think AI is going to replace human beings. If you marry AI with the DNA, the way my mind connects people and projects, and in a sticky or lasting way, it can only help the introvert get farther faster by really understanding him or herself and the people that they're moving around, so they can connect genuinely. And just to give you one example, right now I'm reading this gorgeous book called Born Lucky, and it's by a former Fox News anchor named Leland Vittert. And it comes to pass, you see in the book, he is high on the autism spectrum. He's Asperger's, got a brainiac IQ, but the EQ, emotional, there's just the gap is tremendous. And this book, I'm almost three-quarters through. I'm going to have him on my podcast, but it's astonishing to see how, abusive kids are still, but back when he was in elementary school. But he overcomes all these things because the EQ is something his father had to teach him. Because as he explains in the book, you don't have those social cues or understanding that others do. And I think it correlates to this conversation about being introverted. I mean, you could almost say, like, well, if you're scared or introverted, you should read Lucky's book and realize how lucky you are, right? Like you have more than you realize. And books like that can help people, I think, understand A, they've got a lot more to offer the world than they might see. And B, they can confront some of their fears, insecurities, and C, they can workshop it before they even go out. But you got to be in it to win it, they say. And I think that's true. I just love being out and about, moving through different circles and audiences because that's what feeds me. That's what makes me, I think, help others.
What practical strategies do you recommend for maintaining relationships across time, distance, and cultural differences? And you mentioned that 2 questions ago about how you've been able to maintain relationships even if you haven't spoken to the person for a long period of time.
Yeah. Well, I think again, use the digital tools. We joked earlier about Rolodexes, and back in the day, had a Palm Pilot, and you can actually it's even very easy. It's easier. Now, I tend to note people's birth dates that are near and dear to me, so they're in my calendar every year. So that's always an occasion to catch up with someone. And when you go through, and when someone's parent passes, and I know it's particularly difficult, I will annualize that so I can check in with them and say, I know this is a tough. I think this is probably a tough day. I remember this when your mom died or what have you. Also, the career accomplishments. You share something like a victory with your colleagues at work. That's a fun time. Like it was a tragedy, but I worked at the New York Times. Um, well, the tragedy was 9/11, not that I worked at the New York Times. But when my first 3 months at the New York Times, 9/11 happened, and we were the hometown paper. I live in Manhattan. I saw, I mean, it was just a truly horrible tragedy. So it's very personal to me. I lost one friend there, and every year we're reminded, thankfully, if we were, and that'd be tragic. But every year I will write a note, an email, or reach out to our little team, the communications teams from team members from the New York Times victim, because it matters. It mattered. And it's not a joyful memory, but we went into high gear covering that as the hometown paper. And it was one of the most important pieces of work I ever did in my life. So that's something, it's a poignant way to be in touch. And then the other thing is you can set up all kinds of things. Now with AI, we're going into what they call the agentic era or the agent, and you can actually create little things. I'm working on it now. Like I create daily clip reports for people in different businesses. But I think you could start, and I send horoscopes to certain friends. I read the New York Post horoscope every morning, and I send it to 3 different people who either share my birthday or are dear to me. So, it's just little fun things, but experiment a little bit with it. If you have someone you went to college with and it's homecoming, you send something there. It's more about just being creative and giving yourself the grace or the space and time to say, I can be me and reach out to this person with no agenda at all. And that's the best part when it's really just agenda free.
So, how should someone approach high profile or influential people without seeming opportunistic?
Well, the question sort of to me begs the question of, well, are you being opportunistic? So if you really believe that this person would or should know about your brand or your launch or what have you, then dig deeper and make sure you're making that case in a really compelling way with the numbers, the FAQ, or things that are going to matter. But I think most people, particularly successful business people and celebrities, have so many filters around them. And for good reasons, because a lot of people just want fame or connection, but they don't really want to do the work, or they really are deluding themselves. So again, you can workshop that with AI. Also, because of technology, a lot of people in my career in public relations, usually you would reach out to editors and journalists, call, write. Now you can actually go right to the source with, if you DM with people on X, what was Twitter, or Instagram or TikTok. So I think sometimes if you really want to get to them, you can, but I would still defer to old-fashioned ways of, if it's a celebrity, for example, you can very quickly find out who their agent is, their publicist, and their lawyer, and go that way. That's respectful and more likely to work in your favor than you try and go around those people.
A question from the audience. Would you advise on keep posting on LinkedIn based who you wish to attack to interact with, such as investors, in the era that in the era that is all about authenticity Wouldn't making posts on LinkedIn so strategic make you look across not authentic?
Uh, was the first was it attack or attract?
Uh, uh, she had written attack, but I think she might have meant attract.
Yeah, I think so. Because what like I just posted today.
Attract. She just
Yeah.
corrected it.
Yeah.
Attract.
So again, at my core, I believe that all people deserve respect. And so I think broadly about everything as a spectrum, whether it's politics, gender, whatever, faith. So I don't try to put anyone place on the spectrum. I try to see them and meet them where they are, where they say they are, and just work with them for whatever the exercise is. If it's corporate social responsibility, I'd rather work with Altria, which is a tobacco company, because they've made bold commitments to corporate social responsibility and moving toward a tobacco-free future. Whereas, you could say, oh, everyone wants to work for Eileen Fisher or Patagonia because they're very, environmentally friendly. But that's not where the impact is necessarily. But I will first meet people where they are or brands and try and work with them in moving to a more responsible, more engaged place. But also, I try to present my posts and myself as a conversationalist, a bridge builder, a thought provoker. So the post today on the Chamber of Commerce, the president of the US Chamber of Commerce was posting about the shutdown, which is a big concern for all of us, not just small businesses. And because I want to do more with the international network of American Chambers of Commerce in my AI practice, I reposted her article and agreeing with her, and also saying that AI is one of the great tools we can be using right now, particularly at chambers, to help our members get through challenging times. And I give three examples, one of which is, a simple training program in AI. Another is being able to, well, you can see my post if you want, but I try to give very actionable practices or hacks in some place, or bring a little charm or smile or historical context. But I don't bash people. It's not my nature to bash people. I might ask questions that are provocative. I mean, I'm not a big fan of all things MAGA, but every so often I will, when Ivanka Trump or Elon Musk asks me thumbs up or thumbs down for, President Trump. I'll just say, what do you say? Like I'm not judging it one way or the other, but I'm just, putting my voice out there because I think it's important that we hear each other, even if we don't agree. But I don't believe in attacking on social media. I don't think my post would suggest that at all. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I thought so, that it answered the question. Um, how do you decide which relationships to invest your limited time and energy in? Especially in your case, you have 30,000 of them.
Yeah. Well, that's on digital. And I'm always refining them, right? So, a couple of things. One, again, because communications, I like sound bites and metaphors. I think about the planet, the system of planets, and there are those people who are like in the sun and in your closest orbit, like your spouses, your kids, and those are nearer, dear to you, their blood, they're core to you. So those ones you kind of keep close. And then there may be the high school friends or college friends that kind of come and go. And when they're in your orbit, you'll interact with them where they are. And then there are those people who are just, you know, loosely affiliated, so they're further out. So I think conceptually, how much time and energy do I want to sort of put into that? And then the beauty of life and being human-based DNA, even in this digital AI world, is there's always these serendipitous moments where some blast from the past comes back. And you could be walking down the street in New York City. I mean, at least once a week, I run into someone who, in a sense, I joke like I conjured them up, or you haven't seen them in years, and all of a sudden, there they are at the same concert. So, um, technology, AI might have been able to predict that, but I love the randomness of that. And then across time, it just things change. A crisis will happen. I'm sure if you were in Philadelphia, I think when 9/11 happened, Mark.
Yes,
So I'm sure you were still getting calls from friends all around the world saying, "Are you all right?" and all that kind of stuff.
yes.
So things like that will also bring the good in people out. And in turn, we do that for others. Like a plane goes down in Arizona, I'm going to check in with Samir as my instructor pilot pal, and someone is he lives there. So I just kind of use cycle of life as well as the calendar. I mean, I don't believe in having big parties because I like to just get more intimate as I get older and go deep with one person on my left or right. But once or twice a year, Harlan and I will have one big thing, and it's kind of got a come one, come all. And then again, going back to the metaphors from connecting the dots and the piloting metaphors. In flying, when you land, there's something called vectoring. So when you're coming in from any 360-degree perspective, you need to get vectored in so that you're going to come straight down the runway. So if it's a holiday weekend, I will say to my husband like a week or two before, like, there's going to be all kinds of incoming. People are like, what do you want to do? Let's get together. But I said, Harlem, just vector everyone in to open house from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock on Saturday. Boom. So once we're in sync, that's the easiest way. And so it's not disingenuous, because you do want to see these people, but there's only so much time to have one-on-one dinners or two-on-one. And also, by bringing those people together, we allow other people to connect in ways that they never could, would, I think they should have. And lastly, we always, with big events, we always put name tags on ourselves and others because people say, oh, I don't like name tags, but boy, oh boy, do they like them, because people forget people's names. And if you have name tags on, it's a lot easier for people to connect and they appreciate it, even if they don't acknowledge it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm always, that's the hard part when you do social networking as opposed to business networking.
Yeah.
Um, how can emerging professionals in developing economies like Vietnam or India apply your principles to accelerate their impact?
Yeah, well, I would do real quick and dirty. I'll give you a hack. I would say you could just take even just the summary probably on Amazon. You don't have to buy my book, or books, but you could forward reviews of them or summaries of them into whichever large language model you use. Get the summary and then workshop it and say, all right, how can I translate or profit from these lessons or tips with my book, my project, my business? Because one of the things I really love about AI is that we say it scales knowledge. If you think about the printing press, how it scaled the written word, or automation scaled the ability to work, travel, live in greater places, and made life better. Electricity did what it did. Scaling knowledge means that while you are very passionate about your students in Vietnam or your podcast, your work, it's very personal, but it's also universal. So you with AI can bring all the world's knowledge to bear on saying, all right, so best business minds, I've got my audience, but for example, it's English language. How could I take best business minds and scale it with AI so that I can now reach the Latino community or the Mandarin speaking community? It might not be a voice overlay, but there are going to be things out there that you just didn't think about, right? So if you're trying to take your business in Vietnam globally, then learn from those who've gone before. And one way you do that is just asking AI, like, give me examples who've done it before me. And then I go deeper and say, all right, well, now give me the top 20 brands, including the LinkedIn's and the main point person, and put it in a chart and tee up my pitch note or my DM and all that. I mean, in seconds, you can use AI to take my book, translate it in a sense for your purposes there, or you just call me.
The question from the audience, which AI model is your favorite to ask these questions?
That's the first question I get every time I teach. I've been teaching for almost 3 years, and my answer is you got to use all of them for two reasons. One, the race is on. This is like the wild, wild west. And so in my class, I take the student through 5 or 7 large language models. So Perplexity, Claude from Anthropic, Chat GPT from OpenAI, Grok from Musk, Gemini from Google, Copilot from Microsoft, and then I do think people should use DeepSeek because it's the best Chinese competitor. And each one does things differently. Some have more accurate things. I tend to use Perplexity the most for me because of my writing, and it knows my voice better, and I've got my templates there. But I would use Copilot in anything related to the Office 365 suite of products, so Excel, PowerPoint, Word, because that's why it just fits perfectly with that. Chat will give you more images sometimes that are more fun. If you want a picture's worth 1,000 words, I love nothing more than creating a picture of someone in a fantastic role as the hero in the narrative. And then just 2 weeks ago, Gemini from Google launched a fun little beta called Storybook. And in Storybook, you just prompt, you can upload a photo if you want, but you just prompt it to write a storybook about Marc Kramer taking best business minds to the Mandarin speaking world. And in 90 seconds, it will create a 10-page illustrated book of that. And so, that old line, like, if she can see it, she can be it. If you can see that, then it's more likely to happen. I just did it last night for a literature professor from Barnard College who is specializing in something called island, I forget it, island something. It's a study of island nations and like Ireland. Anyway, I wrote the book for him to show him as the one who takes this practice or this creates this new, because I asked him, which faculty does that fall under? It's interdisciplinary. Anyway, you can just help people get clearer, faster, and envision, and then bring others along with their vision by using the storybook is a fun one.
Where's Storybook? Is that on Gemini?
Gemini, yep. It's an if you
Great.
go up the left, you'll see it's a little blue. It's beta, but it's fun and it's just seconds. And that's the joy piece, Mark. I mean, honestly, this professor last night who thinks he knows everything or AI is not for him or it's fake, whatever. He was blown away. And I had no skin in the game. I just said, you can land a story or a message or bring it to life more readily than you might think.
So I think this is going to be the last question as we've run through the hour. And I think our audience is primarily at mid-career. What advice do you have for people reinventing themselves mid-career who feel they've lost touch with their network?
Well, I think that's a bigger question than the network. So I would go back to the core, the purpose, right? And I think reinventing even is maybe not giving yourself not enough credit for what you've done and who you are and the lives you've had an impact on. I think really pivot might be a better word, but I think as I say all the time, your whole career, there are no wrong decisions. It all makes sense in the rearview mirror. So use this opportunity to seek joy and have an adventure. And by that, I mean, once you're ready, locked and loaded and going out for interviews or pitching yourself, I can promise you people want to help you, but you have to be very specific in your ask. So you have to say, hey, Toby, I see you're connected with Marc Kramer at Best Business Minds. Would you mind introducing me for this job that I'm applying for a new communications role in Hanoi? And I will likely say, sure, but I need you to draft me the note. I'll edit it and put it through. But you got to be very targeted in your ask of others. And if you're targeted in your ask, they're more likely than not, when you tee it up that easily, they're more likely than not to help you do it versus, oh, I don't know, I'm open to whatever, I could live anywhere. No, be very specific. I want to be in Hanoi. I want to be doing communications and I need to do this, this, and this. I want commercial or nonprofit. And then the other thing I would say is think about the purpose. Who are you? What motivates you? What do you want to be remembered for? And let that bake your thinking and be the adventure seeker with your job search because that's that fun person who's going out, not in fear, but in a sense of awe and curiosity to find that new role. That's the person someone wants to talk to. I always tell people I don't have a crystal ball, but life is like a roller coaster. You may not be able to see the future, but if you go out with your hands clasping the bar out of fear, like, oh, I don't know what I need to do next, that's not going to be a fun ride. But if you put your hands in the air and say, I'm on this journey and I'm going big and casting my net using AI to find ways to think differently about my skills, transfer them, you only get one ride. So would you rather ride with your hands in the air, sort of screaming with joy and adventure, than fear in this era of existential crisis and AI is going to take my job? I say the contrary. This is the time to use AI, focus on experiential marketing, focus on AI. Everyone will be better served if you put in your tagline, the best business minds, an AI forward podcast. That begs the question, well, tell me more. What does that mean? And as you know, Mark, AI, no one can claim it. This is the wild, wild west. So you've got nothing to lose by flying it as you build it, to stick with the piloting aviation, by saying, I'm the first AI forward business podcast.
I have to say the time, as I say every week, the time just goes too fast. I certainly enjoyed listening to your thoughts about networking and connecting with people. Toby, thanks so much for taking the
Thank you.
time to speak with us.
Of
And
course.
I want to have further conversations with you offline about
Yes.
AI and how you can help my students um, look at AI as an opportunity to create jobs and wealth as opposed to one where they have to fear it. So
And take
everyone,
others with them.
yes. So everyone, have a wonderful weekend, and I'll look forward to seeing you all next week. Take
All right.
care.
Thank you so much, Mark. Have a great one.